Oh, I get it.
I forget
You
which
gotta
one
see
it
to
was.
get the
Cody!
But
that.
it was like,
Huh?
it was during hands.
What are you doing? Hammond, shut your ears real quick.
When I was mentioning about that one, there was an actual they have every day walking around this giant keyboard.
No more shooting.
You miss a single thing. You are excellent.
Okay, let's go ahead and bring it on in here. Alright, so listen up guys. So this is how it's going to work here. So I'm trying to figure out how this is going to work specifically, but we're working it out as we go, okay? This is the benefit of being a first year teacher, right? You guys work with me, I work with you, this is how fun. It's fun like that, okay? So, my first group, my spades, is going to talk about it first, and then second, we're going to talk with the clubs. Third, we will talk with the diamonds, and then fourth, we will end with the hearts, okay? So I kind of met with each of your groups here and kind of discussed a little bit about what you're supposed to be talking about, summarizing the article, identifying any discrepancies or questions that you guys may have, and then going from there, okay? So we'll go ahead and start with group one here. Or do you need an extra second?
An extra second.
An extra second, all right. So you guys got an extra 30 seconds then. I'll let you finish up.
Are we supposed to take notes with this, too?
Allowed to take notes? Yes, you're allowed to take notes with this.
Wait, are we supposed to?
You don't have to take notes with this. I should tell you. You do not have to take notes, okay? I would prefer you rather to be able to listen intently on the discussion than to take notes. So just so you know.
Why is your
Huh?
Why is it facing us?
Because you were talking.
Probably he's talking.
Okay.
Also, when we talk,
Huh?
When we talk, is it gonna have to face us?
Yep.
Oh, that's
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
But this guy says he's got the gift of the gap.
You guys ready?
Yeah, we can discuss that.
Okay, here we go. We got the spades that are gonna start off first, okay?
Okay.
Just speak up.
Stand up or?
No, you don't have to stand up. You can sit. Yeah, you can just chill. Alright, listen up guys.
So, we were spades, and we were reading about the rise of Adolf Hitler. So Adolf Hitler felt belonging and purpose from being in the World War and killing people. That made him feel like he had a purpose. He was very good at avoiding death. He came near death very many times. When he finally got shot, it was by a Jew, and that kind of started his hatred for Jews, among many other things. He enjoyed art way more than war and women. He was described as very eager, almost like a teacher's pet. His superiors thought that he lacked leadership qualities and thought that he would not be good at demanding respect from his followers. So they thought that he would be a weak leader. He had severe depression, which caused I still don't know that word. Outburst, rants. And when he was in the hospital, he said, "There followed terrible days and even worse nights. I knew that we lost, and in these nights hatred grew in me, hatred for those responsible for this deed."
Yeah. So this article really went deep into it went deep into kind of Hitler's characteristics, right? We look at where he started off in World War I and being this basically a peon in the German army. He was a messenger basically. That's what he started off as. And he came on a couple occasions on near death. He was in the trenches. He had to deal with it. If you know anything about World War I, you know that it was a very ugly battle. It was also referred to as a war of attrition. And this war of attrition, what we call it, it's this idea of you're just fighting to just fight, is what it comes down to. It's a fight in the trenches, basically, and you have this thing where you go over the top. And then you go out and you basically get shot. That's essentially how it worked. If you were stuck in the trenches, you would go out and shot. The conditions in those trenches were absolutely terrible. And Hitler mentioned that on a couple of times where he mentioned about the reek smell that the trenches had. And many people got PTSD, or they also called it the, not the shivers, the shakes. They called it the shakes. They got the shakes from being just in the trenches, not for going over the top necessarily to fight the battle, but for being in the trenches. The conditions in there, there were mice, there were rats, there were cockroaches, there were anything you could possibly imagine that got into those. Many of the soldiers died of dysentery, which is a gastrointestinal issue. People died from cholera or bad water. Yeah, it was bad. Some people even had occasions where if it was a rainy day, lots of rain fell, people would be stepped on because of the mud that would go on from there, and people would be covered in mud. So it was pretty disgusting. So World War I was not very good. It was not very good for Hitler either. What was the one point that you had about his near-death experience? Did you touch base on the gas mask?
No.
Mustard gas? Was that another article?
I think that was another
It
article.
might have been a different one.
Wait, when he was by a British chlorine gas attack?
Yes. Yep. Is that your article or is that someone
Yeah,
else's?
October 1918, he was temporarily blinded by a British chlorine gas attack. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, when he was in the hospital.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, have you guys ever heard of how Hitler's mustache became Hitler's mustache? It was specifically for that reason. If you think about wearing a gas mask in gas attack, especially with chlorine gas, he had a handlebar mustache, and if you look at some of his earlier pictures, I think the other article, I think my Diamonds guys have, yeah, you can see his mustache specifically there. It's almost a handlebar mustache. That was a trend at the time in the early 1900s, right? We see that handlebar mustache, and if you put a gas mask on, and it doesn't seal around that mustache, that gas is going to get into your mask, and it's going to cause burning sensations. It's going to feel like your eyes are burning off on some accounts. It's going to feel like your face is burning off. It was a very ugly, ugly situation. Well, Hitler was temporarily blinded because of that, because he couldn't form his mask around properly with his mustache. So what he decided to do, and what many other soldiers decided to do, is cut off that mustache, and basically that's where you see the single two that go below his nostril. And that's a very defining characteristic of a Hitler. Obviously that is not a modern trend of mustaches, at least I hope not, because it was pretty disgusting. I don't think it's very attractive at all, so I hope none of you guys think that either. But that's why basically it occurred, and people got used to shaving their faces. Does anybody have like a firefighter parent or anything like that around? Yeah, so what do your firefighter parents have to say about shaving? Are they constantly clean shaven?
Yeah.
Why are they always clean shaven?
Because of the mask they have to wear.
Yeah, if they have to wear a mask, they don't want to get stuck like
It like sticks to your face.
yeah,
You
it'll
have
like
facial hair,
seal
it'll
completely,
stick.
Why?
right?
Mr. Hammond, like, you already know wearing a mask with just these, with your facial hair.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
facial.
wearing a regular face mask, right, with your facial
Yeah, my
hair,
dad's
doesn't
beard
create good
goes
seal.
out. It doesn't go over his chin because he has a
Right.
big beard,
Yeah.
and this is not. It just sits straight.
Yeah,
But
that's
it's
a great example.
uncomfortable.
Exactly.
My papa, he doesn't keep the beard, he just keeps the mustache.
Just a mustache?
Yeah.
Yeah, see, and I know some firefighters that'll do that, or like a
Mine
little
has the whole
goatee or
thing.
something like that, so, yeah, it's kind of interesting to see that, so. Okay, anything else, group one, or my spades? Yeah, you guys my spades? Cool, great job. Okay, so that's kind of how it goes, basically, if you didn't know. It's kind of, you guys discuss the summary, any questions you might have had, and then we kind of talk a little bit about it and move on, okay? Anybody have any questions for the spades group? Okay, moving on to group two then, it's my clubs. Where's my clubs at? I gotta roll it over. There we go, clubs.
Okay,
Talk to me about it. Yeah, speak up.
so we were the clubs, and we had War Ends with German Defeat. among Germans who didn't want to accept defeat. Hitler was one of the people who was obsessed with this idea, and it blamed Jews and Marxists for undermining the war effort. Germany became a republic, and the Second Reich came to an end. They had a constitution on paper made for the new republic, Germany, and it was an extremely liberal democracy. The laws included equality for all, that political power would be only in the hands of the people, political minority representation in the new Reichstag, a cabinet and chancellor elected by majority vote in the Reichstag, and a president elected by the people. They were inexperienced in this, and they did not like the idea of a republic at all. The Berlin and Munich leftist Marxist groups were talking about revolutions similar to those of the Russians. They faced violence issues from the right-wing Freikorps and the regular army. And in January 1919, Berlin murdered communists, socialists, and the innocent bystanders. And in May 1919, Munich did the same thing. The Treaty of Versailles was signed and ratified by the German government, and it forced Germany to say that they were responsible for the war effects and made them pay for damages. They also gave up land to France and Poland. They had military restrictions and that banned from submarines and military aircrafts and a massive 100,000 men. Hitler became an undercover spy in this time, and Hitler was also impressing his superiors with his anti-Semitic speeches, and he was gaining positions to lecture about that.
Mm-hmm. Great. So yeah, you touched base on a lot of what happened after World War I, right? What stuck out to you guys specifically about the German defeat? Like, what was the biggest problem that Germany faced after losing the war?
Military restrictions.
The military restrictions, right? How many were they restricted to?
100,000.
100,000 people, right? 100,000 soldiers is how much? 100,000 soldiers really is not that much, comparably to where they did have some 5-6 million people, right? 6 million soldiers. So it was definitely like severely decimated. What's another thing that's kind of interesting? And we're going to talk a little bit more about this next week with World War I, but what else is very interesting?
Well, it hurt them politically because they had to become a republic and they had no idea how to run that.
Right.
So
And
it was all new.
yeah, and we'll talk a little bit about this with the Hartz group, because they've got a lot when it talks about the Weimar Republic and what the challenges they faced basically. But it's very interesting to see that, right? And how are you going to create a brand new country that is more progressive than before after you just lost the war and were completely humiliated by not only just the other country, but the rest of the world, right? And then you lose land, your inflation is crazy, and then you have to pay reparations on top of it, right? You have to pay. Yes, yeah. So, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that later. I don't want to get too deep into that because I got some stuff to show you. Oh man, it'll make your head spin. It's crazy how Germany was in that condition after World War I. And I personally would argue that they were abused after World War I. But what they caused is certainly possible. You had something to say about Jews and Marxism. What was that? I think it was the first or second point you made.
Yeah,
Talk about that.
The back theory.
Yes.
So the Germans said that it was kind of their fault. They blamed it on them.
Mm-hmm.
Hitler was obsessed with the idea.
Yeah.
So undermining the war effect, they blamed the Jews and the Marxists for that.
Right. So have you ever heard of the concept of, I got stabbed in the back by him. I'm never going to do business with him again, right? Never again. You hear that all the time, right? Well, this is the idea of Germany, right? Germany felt like they were being stabbed in the back by the rest of the world, right? They're saying, the rest of the world's like, okay, well, you lost. You can accept the blame that you lost, but we're gonna try to help you. However, we're gonna put reparations on you to where we can't help you. We're gonna help you get you back on your feet, but we're not gonna help you at all, right? And this is where the Weimar Republic is. We're gonna talk a little bit more about that here in a second. So, anything else, Group 1, that you wanted to emphasize? All good? Cool. Great job. The stab in the back theory is super, super interesting. I love entertaining that thought, just because it makes it almost melodramatic in a way, and that's what Hitler kind of did, right? Okay, group 3, which is my diamonds. Who's my spokesperson?
Whoa.
What?
Someone stole his dog?
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah, during World War I, when he was a soldier, somebody stole his dog. Yep. Yeah. Okay. There you go. Sorry, spokesperson for the diamonds. Go ahead.
But can I go?
Yeah.
So we got,
Kelsey, you gotta speak up. I can't hear you very well. Sorry.
I'm a quiet person, I'm sorry.
You gotta enunciate. Gotta hear you.
We got the article on the Weimar Republic and like the rise of the Nazi Party and everything. Like within the first paragraph, it says, the Weimar Republic's constitution safeguarded basic democratic human rights. And we wondered like what safeguarding meant, so we asked Mr. Hammond because it was between either protecting or like taking it away. And safeguarding is just like protecting and like giving them the rights that they didn't already have, which eventually, oh my gosh, I can't speak. Eventually, the rights were taken because of the Weimar Republic falling, but they were there for a little bit. Many of like the German citizens were like feeling really bad for the Czar.
I'm sorry.
Couldn't tell you.
The Kaiser.
The Kaiser.
Kaiser. Yep.
Because they were forced to resign and surrender, basically. The Treaty of
Versailles.
That one
Versailles. Yep. That's French.
wasn't signed. Like it hadn't been signed yet.
Yep.
So it was the treaty was like offending to many sections of the German nation because they had a bunch of conditions that they didn't like agree with.
Mm-hmm.
But they also felt like it was being forced on them by the people who beat them in the war. So
Yeah. Yeah. This is a great point you bring up, Kelsey. I'll help you out here a little bit. The Treaty of Versailles, right? When we talk about the end of World War I and we look at the United States side, we look at Woodrow Wilson. Has anybody heard of Woodrow Wilson's 14 points?
I've heard of his name.
Courtney's heard of it. I know Courtney and I talked about it. Courtney, do you want to say something real quick about the 14 points?
Like,
What were they?
they were, his points of view on how, like, I don't know.
Like how to
Say,
get the
Kind
world.
of like civil, like how they can say like civil kind of.
Yeah. How to restore harmony, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. And what about those? Like what happened with them?
Well, they kind of ignored them.
Yeah.
They threw them out. They're like, these are dumb.
Yes. So Woodrow Wilson had 14 points when he goes to the meeting at Versailles, which is in France. He had 14 points basically to discuss with the League of Nations, which involved Italy, which involved the United States, and other countries, France, specifically Britain and Germany, who actually was excluded from the Versailles Treaty. We'll talk more about this a little bit later. But Wilson started to get up and speak about his 14 points. And then Italy, France, and the United Kingdom basically said, we're not going to go with those. We're not going to do that. That's too nice. That's too nice for Germany. They were responsible for millions of lives being killed. They were responsible for the destruction of so many acres of land, miles of land. Bless you. Bless you.
Thank you.
Destruction of so many acres and miles of land and the deaths of so many people. The home front is ruined. The economy is ruined. Politics is ruined, right? Everything around Europe is in utter fire. It's chaos, right? So basically they were like, well, you're the United States. You really didn't have any real say in the war because you were only involved in it for 1 year. So we're going to ignore all of what you have to say, Wilson, and we're going to put in none of what they say, and we're going to make them pay reparations. We're going to do exactly like what Group 2 was talking about, the clubs group, about paying reparations and putting consequence to Germany and giving them fuel to that stab in the back theory. Do you see a problem with that? It gives rise to more extremism in terms of Germany's politics, Germany's society, right? Because now the whole world is against them, right? It's not just Germany that's humiliated, but now the world's against them. They're like the redheaded stepchild of the entire world, right? It's crazy. So yeah, the Treaty of Versailles was very significant, and Germany was never involved for that.
Because
Never put in.
they said that's what started the whole like stabbed in the back bit.
Yep.
Was the Treaty of
Yeah, we're gonna help you get back on your feet, but you can't be there when we're making solutions for that.
Why is it a
Right.
theory? I might sound stupid. Why is it a theory?
Why is what a thing?
Not true?
What?
Wait, what? Why is it a theory?
Why is it a theory?
Yeah.
It's
Don't make me sound stupid.
they call it a theory because there's evidence that says that a lot of Germans had to stab in the back, but they didn't. Not all of them said, "Oh, we got stabbed in the back," right? So it's this general implication of.
Oh, like an
It's
umbrella term?
Yeah, it's like kind of an umbrella statement to basically
Oh.
say that this is the sentiment that Germany had, basically, that they've been stabbed in the back.
They couldn't,
Oh.
they
Right.
couldn't handle losing, so they needed
Yes.
someone to blame.
Yes,
Oh.
precisely. Good job. Yep.
Yeah,
They couldn't handle it. Yeah. Yep. Great. Anything else, Kelsey? Or
yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
War.
You're good.
I wrote down a point. How
After the
hard
war, they had serious debt, which made it hard for them to create new jobs and get back on their feet.
Yep.
It made it really difficult, and one of the most like serious problems that they had at that time was hyperinflation. The value of the German currency plummeted from 60 marks to the dollar in 1921 to 4.2 billion marks to the dollar at the end of 1923, which is crazy.
What? So how many? 6 Reichsmarks?
It went from 60 to 4.2 billion.
Yes, and it was to the point where they're like German citizens had to be paid twice a day in order
Yeah.
to even put that number on the check.
How do you like fix that?
How do you fix that?
Do you just burn all the money?
That's kind of what they did, basically. So inflation, right? Anybody in my economics course? Riley was in it. I don't know if Alexa, you're in. What's inflation? Talk about inflation.
Inflation is when your currency goes up.
Your currency goes up. Why?
Well, the currency
Because the value
value
of
goes
that's
down.
one thing.
Yep. So the
like,
value goes down, but why? Because they begin what?
Mass production.
They make more money. Like they're
So-
printing more money for no reason when they don't have it backed by gold or any other form of currency that they can trade, right?
Well, inflation is done in the US, you just print more money.
Exactly, yeah. So how do you get rid of debt? How do you make the debt number go shrink it? Well, let's print more money, right? So
That's how
is
you
it
get
what?
more.
Yeah. So you had 60 in 1921, right?
1921.
To the dollar, to the American dollar, American
And then
US
in
dollar.
Literally 2 years.
It went from
to
$1 to
4.2 billion.
4.2 billion. 60 to 4.2 billion with
2
a
years.
B.
In 2 years.
Yes.
Which is crazy.
Exactly. And that goes to show how oppressed Germany was because, and I'm not sympathizing with them
Yeah.
in a way, but it just goes to show how oppressed Germany was after World War I. It was disgusting. I mean, you got a country that's completely humiliated. Wouldn't you think they had to pay a little bit of a reparation and that'd be enough? No. They made a point. France did, UK did, US was ignored, so it didn't matter.
Yikes.
Other countries wanted to make sure that Germany was punished and could never get back up on their feet, right? And so, sorry, Kelsey, go ahead and continue.
And then, like, after that, the political crisis was a mess too because
Yeah.
they had frequent elections. There was 10 elections in 14 years,
Mm-hmm.
which is way too many.
Yeah.
And then 3 major revolution attempts, like, also occurred in the first years of the
Mhm.
Weimar Republic.
Yep.
And in 1919, the communists tried to overthrow the Democratic Republic. And in 1920 and 1923, like the right-wing nationalists, including Hitler,
tried to seize power as well.
Yeah.
So there was just a lot of fighting over like who was going to be in charge and everything.
Yeah.
Nobody really wanted to agree on it, so
Right.
it was a mess.
Yeah, and so let's talk about the politics for just a second, right? We look at, when we were talking, right, at the end of World War I, remember what I discussed? What's up, guys?
Do you guys know where Swimmer is?
She's in room 116. We were talking about all the political parties that were represented in the Reichstag, which is the new Weimar Republic's parliamentary system, right? How many were there? Does anybody know? We claimed that there were 32 different political parties being represented there, right? And it was mainly ran by the Social Democrats and the German Workers' Party, basically. Those are the further left and the further right, basically. But then we see where you have attempted coups, you have attempted revolutions and overthrows by the communists in 1919, right?
Yep.
And then you see in 1923, we'll talk a little bit more about it, where the NSDAP, the Nazi Party, tried to overthrow the government then, right?
Yep.
And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. That's a fun conversation. We'll talk about just that alone one day.
And then another interesting thing that we found was that when the New York stock market crashed,
Mhm.
it severely affected Germany as well as many other countries of the world.
Yep.
Which we found interesting because we didn't know if the stock market affected any other place.
Yeah. Yeah. You hear
Yeah.
about the American Great Depression, right?
Mhm.
It was not just the American Great Depression. It was a worldwide depression.
Yep.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So,
So-
6 million Germans were unemployed in 1932.
Yep. Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. I mean, it's just chaos. You have 10 elections in 14 years. You literally, if you're trying to figure out who you're going to vote for, you have no idea when you're going to vote or who you're going to vote for. How are you going to establish 10 elections in 14 years? What logical sense does that make, right?
No.
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So, yeah. Anything else, Kelsey?
The German president at the time was opposed to giving Hitler power
Yep.
for good reason,
Mm-hmm.
but was persuaded in 1933 to appoint him as chancellor.
Yep. Yep. Yes. We'll talk a lot more about that later. We're getting a little too far ahead, but hey, it ties in with the story well. So I'll let you go. Yeah. So you look at Hitler being appointed as chancellor, right?
Yep.
Now, why did it's Paul von Hindenburg, who was the president of the Reichstag, president of Germany. Why did he appoint Hitler? Do you know why? I don't know if the article discussed it or not.
I don't think it did.
He had two choices. He had Hitler or he had a communist.
Mm-hmm.
And he knew that if he picked the communist, then the communist would definitely overthrow Germany and make Germany a communist state.
Mm-hmm.
But he says, well, Hitler, he's far right, and I think people will see that he's so extreme that they probably won't overthrow him. And so he picks Hitler, right? And we'll talk a lot more about that later because Paul von Hindenburg could have been an excellent leader, but he was pitiful. He was just pitiful. Yeah, Landon.
Okay. So why did the Nazis seem to have so many core communist values when they were supposed to be so far right?
What do you mean by core communist values?
If you read the program of the National Socialist German Workers' Party, it talks
Uh-huh.
about how profit sharing in large enterprises and stuff like that. That seems to be socialist values. But if they're so
Yeah.
far right,
Well,
they have socialist values.
yeah, so communists believe profit sharing amongst the people, right? Amongst other people, right? If you're a communist, you believe in everybody contributes equally, right? You all work yourselves and you all pull your own weight, right? Well, the Nazi Party believed in that profit sharing, but instead of sharing it with each other, you're going to share your profit with the government, period. And you give all of your profit to the state. They just kind of put it in a wolf's and sheep's clothing to get the communists to be coerced to joining the right. Yeah. So I know a lot of people and you'll hear this. That's a great point you brought up too. A lot of people will compare communists, you'll hear somebody say, oh, you're a commie, or oh, you're a fascist.
Oh, my God.
They're not the same thing, y'all. I'll just let you know. I hope you never call anybody that because you better be serious when you say it. But you'll hear, oh, Biden's a commie or Biden's a fascist, or you'll hear, oh, Trump's a commie, Trump's a fascist, or Obama.
on
You've
two
heard the same
different,
thing, right?
sides of the spectrum.
Yes, and they're two. Yes, exactly. And people don't understand that.
I remember you writing it on the board. I was like, wait.
Yeah, but if you look at like what Landon said, some of the policies, some of them are tweaked a little bit enough to where the wording is changed around to where it may look like communism, right? And so this was a great way, and we'll talk about Joseph Goebbels and him trying to get more people from the Communist Party to join the fascist, the German Workers' Party, or the NSDAP. So yeah. Anything else on that, Landon? You good? Great point, though. That's a great point. Anything else from the diamonds? Okay.
Can we start? Because we only have like 2 minutes.
20 minutes.
I think you got 20 minutes left. 20 minutes left? We got 20 minutes left. We're good.
Whoa.
We're playing.
2:46.
Okay, let's go ahead and go to the hearts. I wanted to talk a little bit about the 53 Nazi points because there's 19. They only picked the 19 best. There's 53 of them technically that the party really stands for, 53 points, but they picked the 19 most extreme, I think, or the most best, if you want to call it that. I shouldn't have said that, but yeah. So, anyways. All right, let's go to the hearts. Okay.
Is it our turn now? YouTubers, guys.
Yeah, you guys talk now.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we had Hitler joins the Workers' Party.
Mm-hmm.
The Workers' Party was basically like a precursor to the Nazi Party, and
Okay.
it had and it was pro-military and anti-Semitic, like, but it was just like a political party, but it was like in shambles. It was like not like a big one-person organization. It was not organized in any way, capacity, and that's what like Hitler did not like about it. He was like,
Ciao. Let's change this.
yes.
So tell me the story real quick of how Hitler kind of got involved with the
So he
Workers'
was
Party.
ordered to like go there and like investigate, and he went in civilians' clothing
Mhm.
to see
Disguise.
to what was going on, since like, you know, it was the Workers' Party
Yep.
and they wanted him to attend. When he got there, some guy said something to make him really angry, so
Mhm.
he got up and like, how long was it? He got up
For
and
15 minutes, he
he
yelled
had
at
a
the person.
tangent for 15 minutes about like his beliefs and like how he was like wrong.
Yeah.
And then as soon as he finished, after 15 minutes, the founders of the Workers' Party said that he's got the gift of the gab. We could use him.
Okay.
So,
sorry.
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so the gift of the gab is like a slang term for
Mhm.
the ability to talk, like give like persuasively and like for a long time, like he's very talkative. So it's just a slang used back in like it originated in 1839, but like it was kind of we wanted to point that out a lot because like it was slang, but then also at the same time, if you like read a little bit more, Hitler talked very professionally. And
Mhm.
for one of the founders to like use slang is a little like, whoa, okay,
Yeah.
a little weird.
Yeah.
Hitler's-
What was the phrase that set him off? What was the phrase that you can read right from it if you want to.
Go ahead.
Wait, where would it be?
Should be like the second paragraph, I want to say, the last two lines maybe.
Oh, how and by what means is capitalism to be eliminated? Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the topic of the night,
Yes.
right? And when you go, he went to one of these beer halls, which a beer hall is a lot like, it's a bar, but it's kind of more or less a social club. It's kind of a place where you just would go after a long day and relax. It was kind of a lounging place, and then Friday, Saturday nights you'd get a little drunk there. And usually they would have different speakers come in, different lecturers. They would come in and they would discuss things. Beer halls were very popular in the early 1900s. And we know Germany to be very well known for their beer, right? German beer is actually really good. Don't try it until you're 21, but it's really good stuff. Okay.
What's the drink?
Huh?
Nothing.
Probably only like 16.
So, yeah. So we know Hitler now to have that gift of gab, right? So that's something super, super interesting. And we know that he had this idea of going on a tangent, right? Now I have the habit of going on tangents, right? But I don't do 15 minutes uninterrupted. If eventually you guys are gonna get sick of me talking the whole time. You're gonna say something, right? So yeah, that's a great point. So yeah. All right, what else?
Basically, how he actually ended up joining the group was because they gave him the like pamphlet thingy entitled "My Political Awakening,"
Mhm.
and when he read it, he was like, he was joyed to see that the guy who wrote it shared the same political views as he did. He was also anti-Semitic and like pro-military and stuff.
Yeah.
And he's anti-Semitic. He's in
Mhm.
the military. And he, at this point, World War I, gone. He blamed Jewish people and stuff for like the stab in the back.
Yep.
He believed in the stab in the back theory, and he had no purpose anymore because his art thing was done.
He's poor.
Yeah,
So
it
you're
was-
like, what should I do now?
Yeah.
His purpose was gone. He had no art, he had no war, he had nothing.
Mhm.
And he was like, okay, well, this thing is in shambles. It's not doing very well. It's very unorganized. There's not even a pamphlet. And he goes like, he says there's like, how there's not even, aside from a few directives, there was nothing. No program, no leaflet, no printed matter at all. No membership cards, not even a miserable rubber stamp.
In his book,
Yeah, he said that in Mein Kampf.
yes.
Yeah.
And he thought so highly of himself. That's how he talked all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
But he talked very professionally.
Mhm.
So.
So we can say that Hitler was kind of an opportunist, right? I mean, he
Yes.
knew that there was no purpose, right? We already talked about it, right? With the Vienna School of Art, he failed to get in. He tried multiple times, couldn't get in, right? He tried to stay in the military, but they were done with him, right? They had to cut people out, and he was a peon, basically. He was a peon corporal in the military. He didn't really have any sort of job prior to joining the military for World War I. He was homeless. He never had a good home life, which we'll talk about later about Hitler's home life and his beginnings and upbringings. He just basically had nothing going for him. And he went to this beer hall, and he saw this, and he was like, well, hell, here's my opportunity, right? Let's build this party, right?
He was very selfish and self-centered,
Yes.
and he thought of the group as like something he can control.
Yes, like he was
Something
going to
for
be their
himself.
savior, right?
Yes.
Huh.
There's so much better.
See some parallels here, according to history and what you may know. Yeah, it's interesting. It's very interesting. So
Very
he
interesting.
believes he's going to revolutionize the party. He believes he's going to do that.
He's
So
arrogant.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, without a doubt. Anything else on that point?
I mean, he took 2 days to decide. I thought
It took a couple days to
Yeah,
decide.
me and we laughed about that because why would it take him 2 days if that's his, like if he knew like what he wanted
Right.
to do already?
What
like,
else
if
did he have to do?
Yeah, like
Oh,
did he
maybe
like
he's
do
plotting.
it for like show? Like
Yeah.
I mean like I don't word join like do.
Yeah. Maybe he was waiting for people to grovel or beg, right?
Yeah.
That could have been one thing. Yeah, it's
He was
possible.
already like welcomed as a member.
Yeah, they
Right.
wanted him so badly, and he knew that. He already had the whole thing in his head, but he took 2 days to decide. Like, why would you do that?
Yeah. You got to kiss the ring before I accept your offer. So, yeah. Okay, anything else?
I'm sorry to talk so much.
No, it's okay.
All right, I'm going to end the seminar then for today.